Right, I didn't record again. It's getting complicated. Maybe it's because what I said to now was secret, so nobody was supposed to know it. You never know. Yes. I used to have a cousin who used to say to me, you should sing solo that nobody can hear you. Okay, so I started the recording again. So what did I say until now? I'll just say in brief. The Code of Jewish Law of Joseph Caro of Tzfat of the 16th century was an attempt to make a simplified book of Jewish law. It has 4 categories: the laws of every day, prayers, holidays, that's called the laws of every day. Category number 2, marital laws, family laws, Even HaEzer. Category number 3, the laws of courts, Choshen Mishpat. And category number 4, Yored De'ah, which is basically everything else, the laws of kashrut, of the dietary laws, the laws of charity, of mikvaot, of ritual baths, of mourning, all the things that were left out in the other ones, basically. So those are the 4 parts of the Code of Jewish Law. How is it based? It's based on 3 books. The book of Isaac Alfasi, which is a summary of the Talmud, a legal summary of the Talmud. The book of Maimonides' Mishneh Torah, which is, again, a summary of the Talmud as a code. And the work of Asher ben Yechiel, which is also a summary of the Talmud. So every time 2 out of 3 agree, that is the Code of Jewish Law of Joseph Caro. When Joseph Caro wrote his Code of Jewish Law, as I said, there was a fellow named Rabbi Moses Isserlich in Krakow, who heard that Joseph Caro had written his book, so he decided not to publicize his book, and he buried it instead, and he got a copy of Joseph Caro's book, and he wrote every time he disagrees with Joseph Caro, going through the book. And the Ashkenazim follow the customs of Moses Isserlich, except when he agrees with Joseph Caro, and the Sfaradim follow Joseph Caro and not Moses Isserlich. That's more or less in a simplistic way to look at it. I say simplistic because different communities do different things. Life is never black and white, even though political leaders like making it so, but human beings are not so. It's called, let's not get the ideas confused with the facts. Facts of life is that human beings are different. So, anyhow, a little story, a legend, which is told. If you go to Krakow, there is, in the Jewish part of Krakow, which is called Kazimierz, where all the buildings are still standing, because if you know the story, the Nazis wanted to destroy Krakow, but the Russians came too quickly, and they were not able to. They also wanted to destroy Paris, but the general who was told to do it decided not to. Why should I destroy Paris? What's the point? Right? So that's why Paris is still standing today. And but in Krakow, they just didn't have time. They did destroy Warsaw, the Nazis, right? The whole place, 1943, Warsaw was leveled. And everything, that's why it's interesting when you go today to Warsaw, you have new Warsaw and you have old Warsaw, which was reconstructed out of pictures. It's really fascinating that they were able to do that, including the palace. So Krakow, but you have original buildings. So behind the Ramah synagogue, which stands there, which was renovated about 300 years ago. It's not the original one from about 400 years ago. So behind there's a cemetery. Now the cemetery was actually destroyed by the Nazis, but from pictures, they were able to put back a lot of the stones based on old pictures. And the stones of the Ramah and his family actually are the original ones. They remain there. They were in a little gated area. Now there is a tree that grows out right next to the stone of the Ramah's tomb. And according to the legend, that tree grows exactly from where he buried his book. So that's the legend. When I first heard the legend, the tree was supposedly a fig tree, but I don't think you can have a fig tree in Poland. So when I actually saw the tree, it was not a fig tree. So it was more a figment of somebody's imagination than actually a fig tree. So, but there was a tree there, which was interesting thing. Another interesting anecdote, which you might not know, if you have seen Steven Spielberg's Schindler's List, anybody see Schindler's List by Steven Spielberg? So in Schindler's List, he takes the Jews to the ghetto in Krakow. But he actually does not take them to the ghetto in Krakow, because what happened was when Steven Spielberg went to Krakow, so he said, show me the ghetto. So they went across the river, he showed them the ghetto, and it was just a whole bunch of houses. He said, that doesn't look like a Jewish ghetto. So what he did, he says, is there anything that looks a little Jewish around here? They said, yes, Kazimierz. So he went back over the river and he made Kazimierz the ghetto. But the Kazimierz historically was not the ghetto. It was where the Jews lived, and then they were moved into the ghetto across the river. But so when you see all the pictures you see of the ghetto in Krakow and in Schindler's List, it's actually taking place in Kazimierz. And he had the whole Shiroka Street, it's called Wide Street. It was rebuilt just for that movie. I'll tell you another anecdotal thing. This was in the 1990s. Kazimierz, before the 1990s, became a slum area. You had drug addicts and homeless people just lying around there. It was like the bad part of Krakow. And Steven Spielberg walked in and he started rebuilding the buildings for his set. And it was just after communism, so I guess it was not too expensive for his expenses. And he literally rebuilt about one full street of Kazimierz. All the buildings were redone on the outside and a little bit more into some of the areas. So, and then by about 1996, whatever he finishes the film, he goes away. So then developers walked in, they said, this is a good looking street. So they started putting in pubs and they put in cafes, and then there was hotels were reopened there. And then the whole area of Kazimierz became this posh area with cafes and whatever. And now it's considered one of the best areas in Krakow. And all because of Steven Spielberg. So you never know how things are going to develop the next day. Now, if he was really smart, he would have bought out that street. Then he really would have made some extra money, but I guess he probably didn't need it. So that's the story of Kazimierz. So until now, we explained the development of the Code of Jewish Law from the oral tradition, which originally was oral, was not written. The first time it was written in a very short form was Judah Hanasi, Judah the Prince's Mishnah. That was expanded by the Gemara in Babylonia, what we call the Babylonian Talmud. And then, as I said, it was codified for the first time in the 11th and 12th century by Isaac Alfasi, by Maimonides, and by Asher ben Yechiel the Rosh. And then in the 16th century, it was made into an actual code of Jewish law in 4 volumes, which was much easier to read. And that's what's called the Code of Jewish Law, or the Shulchan Aruch, which is used until today. Question? Anybody? Oh, I see new people here. Here's Rodi Kabarak. Okay.
Where do you know these anecdotes with the Schindler's List movie?
I took groups to Poland 9 times.
Ah, okay.
Students from Israel, and it was very important for me not just to see sites related to the Shoah and the Second World War. I wanted people to see the Jewish sites of Poland, because they're, the Jewish community there is quite old, goes back 600-700 years. And it was actually the largest Jewish community in Europe between the wars. Romania, of course, was the second largest between the wars. And so, there's a lot to. So I took groups 9 times to Poland and 2 times to Romania. Yeah,
Ah.
mostly to Transylvania, because it was in the summer, it was very picturesque. So,
Because I know
and besides, when we came to Bucharest, it was 40 degrees. And they said, it can't be 40 degrees. This is Europe. What's going on? So this is not Tel Aviv, it's Europe, but it was 40 degrees. So that's what happened. Yeah, doesn't mean they didn't have a good time, just that one day was difficult. Okay, wait, who else came in? Somebody else just walked in here. Somebody else I missed? No? Okay, whatever. So, okay, the next thing I want to explain before we continue is, okay, no, I'm not going to explain that now. I want to give you some examples of the Mishnah, okay? Let's go a little bit forward. It is, it's called the Ethics of the Fathers. The Ethics of the Fathers is interesting because it's Mishnahs which are not about Jewish law. It's a whole little book, 6 chapters. It's actually 5 chapters, but they added a 6. It's from the laws of damages. Remember, if you remember the 6 categories, it's the category of Nizikin, the laws of damages, but it's actually just about ethics. It's very short statements, almost like, I don't know, the wisdom of Lao Tzu or something like that. It's very short statements about life. And the people who are quoted in the Pirkei Avot are scholars from the Mishnah, anywhere from 100 before the Common Era till 200 of the Common Era. Okay, so I want to give you some examples here. And let's take from chapter 1. Here I have it in English. Right after it, you'll see it in Romanian. Right over here. Okay, somebody like to read? Have a volunteer.
Dacă citesc eu.
Okay, merci. Hillel și Shammai.
Hilel și Shammai au primit tradițiile de la ei, de la profesorii lor. Hilel obișnuia să spună: să fiți precum un discipol al lui Aron, un iubitor de pace, un căutător al păcii, unul care iubește toate ființele și le atrage mai aproape de Tora.
Yes. So it says Hillel and Shammai. So Hillel said, you should be a disciple of Aaron. According to the Midrash and the rabbinic interpretations, Aaron, Moses' brother, since he was the priest and worked in the tabernacle, he was also a peacemaker. Not a pacemaker, a peacemaker. But so, which means if he saw that people were arguing, he would try to solve the argument without them having to go to the court. You know, when people go to court, who makes the money? The advocate, not the people who go to court. So it's good to have somebody who can be with, like a coach, you know, they can come to a compromise. So he says it's good to be a disciple of Aaron, somebody who loves peace, who pursues peace, who loves the Torah, who loves people and brings them to the Torah, right? He loves people and he brings them to the Torah. There's a rabbi in Jerusalem whose name was Rabbi Tzvi Yehuda Kook, who once said, it says about Aaron, he loves people and he brings them to the Torah. He said, it doesn't say he loved them in order to bring them to the Torah. Loving people should not be a means to an end. It's because you know that they're created in the image of God. You should just love people because everybody has their pros and cons. Everybody has good things about them and everybody has bad things about them a little bit that they have to work on because that's human beings. Nobody's perfect. Only God is perfect. Of course, there's some human beings who think that they're God, but they're not. So he said that what it says here, love people, and then if you believe in something, you'll teach them what you think will help their lives, but you don't love them in order to teach them. Anyhow, so this is, Hillel is depicted as the peacemaker, somebody who cares about people. And yeah, okay, that's number 1. I have to look at the English to remember what it says. Unfortunately, my Romanian is not very good. Where was it? Oh, I see. Let's take number 14. 14 is a very interesting one. Another saying of Hillel. Who is Hillel, by the way? Hillel lives in the 1st century. He is actually descended from King David. His family is descended from King David. He's also the head of the high court, which by even in the 1st century was not in Jerusalem anymore. It already started going north. He was actually born in Babylonia, and as a child he moved to Judea, and he studied under Shmaya and Avtalion, who were the heads of the Sanhedrin, and actually were descended from converts. Anyhow, this is a saying of Hillel. We have another 10 minutes. I'm very sorry this is happening. Not sure why. I'll try to find out for next time. I hope to solve it by next time. So let's just read what it says. Number 14. Monica.
El mai obișnuia să spună de asemenea, dacă eu nu mă îngrijesc de mine, cine se preocupă de mine? Și dacă eu mă îngrijesc numai de mine, ce sunt eu? Și dacă nu acum, atunci când?
Okay, thank you. Let's see. So what does he say? Sorry that I have to go to the English. If I am not for myself, who is for me? In other words, of course, this is a very popular thing nowadays. You know, people in self-help groups, they always say, you have to learn to love yourself. It's a very popular saying today. But if I am not for myself, who is for me? First of all, a person has to know how to take care of themselves. Because we come into this world, and if we expect everybody to take care of us, our parents care about us. Other people, probably not that much. So you have to first in life, you have to learn how to take care of yourself. So if I'm not for myself, it was for me. Obviously, I have to take care of myself because I can't assume that others will do so. If I am not for myself, then who is for me? Obviously. But then he says, if I am only for myself, if I'm only for myself, then what am I? Meaning, if I only care about myself, what type of human being am I? That's like in the book of Genesis, when Cain kills Abel, God says, where is your brother Abel? So Cain says, am I my brother's keeper? The beginning of morality is to realize that we are not islands, that there are other people out there. Okay, we're not responsible 100% for the other people, but we do share a certain responsibility. So putting things into perspective, yes, if we don't care about ourselves, then we can't expect anybody else to care about ourselves. But on the other hand, also, if we only care about ourselves, then the type of human being we are going to turn into is not a very high-level human being. When we learn, there was Emmanuel Levinas, was a Jewish French philosopher. He was actually born in Lithuania before the war. He actually studied with Husserl together with Heidegger at the time. And he was, his books are about existentialism and phenomenology. And he once said, what does it say in Leviticus, chapter 19? This is, of course, always quoted from the New Testament, but it actually is in Leviticus. It says, love your neighbor as yourself. I am God. So Levinas says, why does it end off, I am God? Why is it not enough to say, love your neighbor as yourself? He says, because, I think I might have mentioned this before. He says, if a human being realizes that there's somebody else out there who feels pain like I do, who suffers like I do, who is happy like me, who is sad like me. The minute we realize there's another human being out there, out from our egocentric world, that's the beginning of morality. That's the beginning of empathy. And once we're able to move out of our 4 cubits, out of our egocentric world, then we can also discover God. So it says, love your neighbor as yourself, I am God. Meaning if you're able to get to step 1 and realize there's somebody else out there who has pain just like you, and you're not the only one, then you can also go further and realize there's also a God. Because if you only care about yourself, then nothing matters. You are your own God. You know, the difference between monotheism and paganism is that in monotheism, God creates man in his image. And in paganism, man creates God in his image. That's the difference. So God becomes a tool for our self-interest. That's the difference between the two. So, yeah. So Hillel says, if I am, on the one hand, im eina nili, if I'm not for myself, then I can't expect anybody else to help me. There's an expression in English, God helps those who help themselves, right? If you can help yourself, then people also might help you out. So, but you have to help yourself first, because you have to care about yourself first, because if you don't care about yourself, don't expect anybody else to care about you more than you do. So that's number 1. Number 2, if you only care about yourself, then what type of a human being are you? And number 3, and if not now, when? Meaning, carpe diem. Don't wait for later. Life is short. And when he says carpe diem, he doesn't mean to make your first $1 million. He means to be a good person. You can do it today. We usually, okay, I'm busy today. Yeah, I have a cousin, he's not feeling well. I'll call him tomorrow. My parents need some help. I'll see them on the weekend. That's the way we act. And you know, sometimes it's too late. Sometimes we forget that there's certain people we want to tell them that we love them, and we wait too long. Or they hurt us and we want to talk about it, but we don't want to talk about it, and then maybe we do, and then maybe we don't, and then you miss the boat. So in that sense, if not now, then when? So that's a famous statement of Hillel. If I am not for myself, then who's going to be for me? I have to take care of myself. But if I'm only for myself, then what am I? And if not now, then when? So that's basically famous statement of Hillel. And we're coming towards the end. See if we can get in another one.
This remembers me about the flight regulations when the flight attendant tells you to, in case of emergency, to put yourself a mask.
Okay. Yes, before the child.
Before the child, yes.
That's true. That's true. Okay. Let's see another one. Shammai. No, let's see. Okay, let's see number 18. Then they're going to turn us off. It says Rabbi Gamliel, Shimon ben Gamliel, Simon ben Gamliel, who was also the president of the Sanhedrin. Is he there? Number 18. Who would Monica? Number 18. Rabbi Shimon.
Rabbi Shimon, fiul lui Gamliel, spunea: lumea se bazează pe 3 lucruri: lege, adevăr și pace. Așa precum se spune, Zaharia, capitolul 8, versetul 16, adevărul și o judecată dreaptă să instaurezi la porțile orașelor tale.
Let's see. So, what does it say here? So Shimon ben Gamliel would say, on 3 things is the world sustained: on law, on truth, and peace. As it says, truth and the judgment of peace you shall administer in your gates. So the world continues actually, there's two statements there, but the second statement is the world is sustained when there is law, truth, and peace, because these are the things that protect society. If you have peace, then people can live their lives. If there's no peace, our lives are wasted because somebody is fighting with somebody and we're caught in the middle. So obviously you can't have life without peace. Justice. If you don't have justice and everybody's stealing from everybody and they're criminals, I also can't live my life. I need some type of framework where I'm going to be protected. Somebody once said that the idea of law is to limit freedoms in a minimal way in order to have maximum freedoms. That's the point of law. You want to limit as little as possible human beings, but you want to limit it enough so that there's maximum freedoms for human beings, because the laws